Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode with the Meeple Maven here on YouTube. So we are about less than 1 week away from the World Series of Board Games 2024 happening in Las Vegas. And given that this is my third year going to the event, I wanted to just give everyone some last minute tips. So if you maybe you're watching this on your way to Vegas or in Vegas. Last minute tips. So I put 5 tips together as I'm packing and desperately trying to get myself mentally prepared for this. So let's dive right in to our top 5 tips here. So the first one is apparently learn how to use a slideshow. That's my first tip. So the first tip here is to have a proactive strategy. So you can see in the picture there, we've got Great Western Trail depicted here, but it doesn't really matter what game you're playing, but the idea is to go in with a proactive strategy for each game. So when you sit down at your game and your table, start the game out by deciding what your strategy is going to be for that game, that particular setup on that particular board, map, starting hand, whatever it might be. So, you might be playing Great Western Trail. You're going to want to figure out whether you're going to be playing a builder heavy strategy, a train conductor strategy, or a cowboy focused strategy, right? There's pretty much 3 strategies in that game. You kind of pick one and go for it. If you're playing, something like brass, you kind of need to decide if you're going to go for the cotton strategy or not go for cotton strategy, right? So taking a moment when you first sit down at the table, pick what your macroscopic strategy will be for that game, and then kind of going with that, and just make sure that you know what your role is and what your plan is for the game once you sit down to give yourself the best shot. So once you've done that and we have a proactive strategy, well, now we need to know when and how to pivot. So again, I'm trying to keep these tips general and not dive too much into particular games. But when we think about pivoting, I'm going to use Terraforming Mars as an example here. So the format of the World Series of Board Games is a single elimination 4-player games. So you have to play 4-player games multiple times, multiple 4-player rounds, and you have to win first place in each one. And so because of that nature of that competition, you can't afford to be the second best at anything. So when I am playing a game and I'm thinking about when to pivot, I need to look at times when I know that I'm not executing my strategy in such a way that can get me first place. So if we take Terraforming Mars, for example, and all of the players if multiple players have decided that they can build the biggest engine and they're going to win the long game, so they just keep getting production and buckets of money. Well, if I'm the second highest production, or even, God forbid, the third highest production, I know that I'm probably not going to win that game. I might get second, I might have a good score, but if I'm going to be the second best on playing the long game, then I might need to figure out how to pivot and try to make the game end quicker, because I know that I'm not going to win the long game, right? So that's a situation where learning how to pivot can be very effective. You have to be able to identify during the game that you might not be able to get first place with whatever strategy you set out with during our first tip, which was having that proactive strategy, right? Maybe you think in Great Western Trail you're going to be builders and you're planning on doing builders, but no builders show up. Well, that can quickly require that you pivot, and so you'll have to think on the fly if you really want to get that win percentage up and have a good time. Now, the how to pivot, right, is a little bit different depending on the game you're playing, but that one's a little bit hard to dive into on a general note, but ultimately, I think the key here is if you can't be the best at something, maybe you should look at other things that you can possibly do in that game. All right, so that brings us to our third tip here. Playing to your outs, right? So We talked about pivoting. So if your initial strategy is not maybe working out exactly how you planned, you might need to pivot, right? Well, we've all been there, and there, unfortunately, for a majority of the competitors, there's going to come a time, sometime throughout the day, when you are not winning the game, and it is pretty clear that you have fallen behind in the game, right? If you take Great Western Trail Finals 2 years ago, uh, I knew I was out of the game at about the 20% mark, right? Now, you can't give up, and you need to continue to play to your outs. So I show a picture here of Texas Hold'em. Now, we all know that, if you get pocket aces, you're probably winning that game, right? But the good players, the people who win these kind of tournaments, are the ones who can figure out how to find a winning line even when things are looking grim. So, what I personally do, and you'll kind of hear me, people probably think I'm crazy, but sometimes if you hear me muttering under my breath in the midst of a game, it probably means that I'm behind and I'm trying to calculate all of the ways that I could possibly figure out how to get back into the game, right? And sometimes that means that you might need to, draw the exact right tiles out of the raw bag and just keep drawing tiles forever and ever and get the exact perfect string of tiles. And it might be a, 1 in a million chance, but there is oftentimes still an out, and you need to make the plays that set up for whatever your winning strategy might be. So, just a lot of players tend to, when they're behind, they kind of give up and they might not play optimally. So just think, if you are behind, what needs to happen, no matter how unlikely it is, what needs to happen in order to get you back into that game, and then play and make the probability of that positive outcome occurring as high as possible. All right, and kind of hand in hand with that, keep an eye on our mental health and stay off tilt. So I kept with my poker theme here. This is actually a picture from an article about staying off tilt and about people going on tilt in poker. So the reason that this is really important with the World Series of Board Games is the tournament itself is a marathon. It's not a sprint. There's 4 days of qualifiers. If you're playing well and you make it to final tables, or even if you make it through a couple rounds, you can often be playing for 8, 12, or 16 hours in one day, and then be expected to wake up and play again at 8 a.m. the next morning. These are all highly taxing mental games. They're exhausting to kind of stay mentally sharp that whole time. So some of the things that I do personally, I always have a bag of snacks. You can ask Nick and Jonathan. I think we were munching on golden raisins last year at the finals. And so number one, stay hydrated, stay fed, right? Always have snacks, drinks, drink and eat healthy. Try to get not candy, but healthy snacks. Second thing, get the sleep, right? The tournament is held in Las Vegas. There's a lot of fun things that you can do in Las Vegas. I would love to stay up till 4 in the morning playing craps every night. But even if my bank account could handle it, it's just not going to be a good decision for the next day. So get the sleep that you need. And then really just, I'm going to quote Ted Lasso here, be a goldfish, right? So I'll tell an anecdote. Last year, day one was Terraforming Mars, and I lost in round one of Terraforming Mars by $1 on the tiebreaker. Not 1 point, but one little dollar on the tiebreaker. And I had made a play about an hour before the end of the game that cost me $2 because I decided to keep a card that I shouldn't have kept because of the requirement on the card. And so, one tiny little error, right? And I after the game, I was needless to say, not very happy, unfortunately, after losing on such a close tiebreaker when it was specifically because of a mistake I made, right? But what I did was I took some time, I left the gaming hall, I reset, and I came back the next day and was able to perform well in the game I played the next day. So, you need to think of what you can do to shake off the losses and be a goldfish. Just forget about what happened and reset each day. So whatever that is for you, find that out. Whether it's meditating or going to gamble or going out to dinner, um, whatever you need to do, just try not to dwell on the. Don't let one mistake cause you to make more mistakes. All right, and then our very last tip here: do the math twice and then do it again. So this is a little bit hyperbolic. You don't want to take an hour per turn, right? You're going to get the judge called. You're going to be playing slow, but this is a competitive tournament, and once you pass, right? And so you really, really, really want to be careful that you have planned out your current move, your next move. You've got all your money right and all your calculations right. Keep track of people's scores, and towards the end of the game, I personally don't think it's inappropriate to ask or to take a moment to count your opponent's scores to get a feel for where everyone's at. If you're in the last round of a game, like say Terraforming Mars or Earth or something like that, right? Add the scores up. Take the time to understand the information, right? You don't want to make a play without calculating everything and without adding everything, right? You don't want to make silly mistakes where you didn't keep enough money to pay for that card, or you couldn't. Maybe you didn't have the right requirement for your animal in Ark Nova, right? I mean, I know for a fact one of the mistakes I make a lot is I don't have my enclosures touching rock or water, and then I try to build an animal that requires rock or water, and then I use foul language in my head, or sometimes out loud, depending on how the day's going. So just be careful. Take a moment. I always like to take a moment to walk myself back through my turn before I pass the card and say, okay, it's your turn. I like to say, okay, I did this, I did this, I did this. I'm happy with that because this is what I'm going to do next. So just be careful. Add everything up. Make sure that you take a pause, maybe 3 seconds before you pass the card, and make sure you did everything correct on that turn. So that wraps up today's video. I am super excited to see everybody in Las Vegas this year. So come say hi to me. Hopefully we get paired together at a table. And hopefully we have some fun playing games out there. So have a great time at the tournament, everybody, and good luck.